Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar titled Future of AI with Driverless AI 1.9. My name is Saurabh Kumar and I'm on the marketing team here at H2O.ai. I'd love to start off by introducing our speaker, Sai Ram Vardarajan. Sai is a customer data scientist at H2O.ai. He has more than a decade of experience in the data science and machine learning field. He has been developing and deploying machine learning models across various industries. Sai is passionate about solving real-life problems through machine learning and data science. Without further delay, I'd now like to hand it over to Sai.
Thanks, Aaron. I hope everybody could hear me. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Let me kind of put it on the side. Yeah. The topic of discussion today, and thanks, Aurav, for the nice introduction. I'm Sai Ram Vardarajan, hailing from Chennai, India, and I'm here to discuss about driverless AI 1.9, the new features which we did get a chance to deliver, and about me, as Saurabh rightly mentioned, I did get a chance to work in healthcare. Now with H2O.ai, more on delivering models, engaging with the customers on getting the best deployment of the models there with H2O.ai, driverless AI, open source projects, and and we have a new product suite called the Q. I hope if time permits, do check out if your time permits, do check out our website with regard to it. And to start with, this is our the platforms which we have got, the driverless AI, which we would be extensively discussing today, and more about it with respect to the new release of 1.9. And we have our own app platform which is kind of called H2O, and yeah, as I mentioned, it would kind of help. It would more on creating dashboards, creating auto insights with regard to it and such. That would be the main deliverable with respect to that. And we have the open source H2O. I think, we did kind of we are talking about it, or getting engaged right now is because of our open source platform, where extensively a good amount of yeah, techniques like AutoML and even Shapley values, which you could kind of produce it there. And our own and the other product is even H2 Autodoc. I think it kind of generates documentation with regard to your models and with regard to the techniques which you kind of use. And we did get a chance to create that one as an app for the separate entity, separate enterprise support as well. So do check out through our websites with respect to the product. And starting with H2O Driverless AI, to give a little bit of glimpse about before 1.9, what it does is H2O Driverless AI. It's an AutoML platform where starting with your feature engineering till the model deployment, either it could be R, Python, C++, Java, and we kind of produce Mojo Mojo artifacts as well, which kind of helps you to deploy your models in any format with regard to even with respect to the database, or even with as a HTTP REST server. We have a good amount of templates and examples with regard to it, which kind of helps you there. And to give with respect to how we could kind of use this product. It is available in on-prem, cloud. It could be your own a VPN and whatnot, and even with respect to the Power PC on the Docker images. I think you can kind of check out our website where you can download the product and test it out, and there is a 21-day free trial with regard to it. And with respect to the feature engineering, or the tuning or ensembling, we have close to we have 16 grandmasters out of 187 worldwide grandmasters available out there. And thanks to them and thanks to their expertise in creating the best state-of-the-art models with regard to every other competition right out there with Kaggle, even Analytics Vidya and such, where those platforms kind of help us to test out our product, test out find new feature engineering techniques, find the right tuning and ensembling of different models. It kind of helps us to bring that back, the Kaggle matches, bring them back with respect to the state of the art, which produces the state of the art accuracy. And starting with with regard to what kind of data which we could kind of handle it out here, which is the start is the tabular data, the time series, text and images as well. I think with if time permits, I'll kind of like we'll kind of jump on the demo with regard to it, where we could kind of like run a simple data set where with regard to the images and how we could how the model kind of classify how driverless AI classifies with regard to it. And that's one of the new feature with 1.9. So these are like the different types of data sets which kind of handles. And definitely like with our Kaggle grandmaster recipes, like we have our own like built-in guardrails, like the check for the overfitting, check for the leakage, and how well the model is underfitting. I think like this is one of the takeaways which I mean extensively from the Kaggle competitions, where we kind of like test out because that's where the real-time scenarios, like more than the cross validation, more than like the testing out on the holdout data set, is where the whole crux of the whole pipe, I mean the design of the machine learning models are. And I think H2O Driverless AI kind of like extensively does keep these guardrails in place for us to like bring the best state-of-the-art accurate models. And definitely like with respect to computer vision, NLP, the GPU acceleration is definitely available, and even like some of the techniques with regard to like NLP, like even with respect to those feature engineering, definitely like it would be good to like throw GPUs whatever available out there, and it helps to get the better like faster training model with regard to it. And like the other enterprise features, like more than like the Mojo, you would definitely like see a good amount of like traction, or like a good amount of like compliant techniques, like with respect to machine learning interpretability, or like calculating the Shapley values, like or k-limes, building the surrogate models, or like bringing the fairness like through like a disparate impact analysis and such. And definitely like the security and authentication. These are the new features which we did get a chance to like add through multi-node, and the multi-user the enterprise features which are kind of like available out there right now. And as I mentioned before, like with respect to the rapid deployment of these models, like within hours, I could say, like you would kind of get a state-of-the-art accurate models deployable in your database as a JDBC through the JDBC connectors or SQL, where you would be available through there, or even the user-defined functions for Spark and Hive, or even the REST batch scoring, which is also like available out there. And yeah, I think it kind of like see the these pictures where the other deployment techniques which are available out there. And definitely like this is like more of where I had seen, where I did get a chance to like work for like 6 months and 8 months of time developing and deploying the model. And now thanks to like these advanced platforms, definitely like with the H2O Driverless AI, where within hours we would be in a position to like yeah, deliver and like deploy these state-of-the-art machine learning models. We'll kind of like go through the like with respect to the 1.9 feature, definitely there. And like these are like the roadmap. Yeah, we'll kind of like discuss about it with respect to the benchmark, and like even with respect the C++ data table backend for faster data manipulations. I mean, we do have a good amount of like benchmarks there. Do check that out. And definitely we would be in a position to like discuss about the newly available feature for time series, which would be SAID, and for NLP it would be the PyTorch models, and the BERT models, which is like already custom like readily available for tryouts and deployment. And definitely the image transformers and the image models there, which should be our scope of discussion for today. So let's kind of like look at 1.8 with regard to the major feature of 1.8, which we kind of had before, is like definitely like we did get a chance to like produce transformers, like bring the transformers like through the even like Keras or TensorFlow. We have good amount of like examples available there in our H2 repository, like H2 AI GitHub repository, driverless AI recipes. Do check that out, and where we would be in a position to like bring the custom scorer, custom transformers, or even the customer data, which kind of helps us to like augment or like do some data processing and cleaning with regard to it. And and such with respect to like 1.8 LTS. And definitely like with respect to the DYOR models, like we did kind of like have some good examples for the cat boost and such, but now like more of like the birth models, like we're starting with 1.9, the grandmaster recipes like image transformers and models, like or even the bird transformers and models, zero implemented models, definitely like it bad with respect to the like credit card fraud transaction and such, where we kind of like have a very high skewed data set information. These models did kind of like produce a best result. We did get a chance to test that out, and like we have like inbuilt with regard to like the with 1.9, and definitely like with regard to the binary classification, we did get a chance to add new scorers, and yeah, custom recipes are now like more of with respect to the user management perspective. Custom recipes are like per user rather than like a per like a deployment perspective, are some of the new additions which we had got in 1.9. I hope that gives a picture with respect to 1.8 and 1.9. And we'll definitely like jump into the image recognition piece, where consider like the we kind of like have like close to 30 plus pre-trained image transformers and models readily available for your like with respect to within one click we would be in a position to like test it out. And like we have like thanks to Kaggle-winning, like more of a model fine tuning or like a neural architecture search. Those are techniques readily available with regard to it. And definitely like with respect to the training on CPUs and GPUs, like GPUs though preferred for image recognition, that's pretty well known. And so even with respect to the training there, and like definitely I think one of the big takeaways, two takeaways with respect to these image models, which would be like where the state of the art models with respect to the DenseNet or like ResNet models, which are readily available there, where we would be in a position to like try all of them with one model and have a readily like deployable mojo, and the scoring which could kind of happen in CPUs or like in as I mentioned before as a UDF in your Spark environment, just call the images and we would be in a position to score. That would be the two like main takeaways which I could kind of like think, where one is like having the state of the art models for your tryouts, and definitely like having a good like standalone like mojo pipeline within as of the training H2O from H2O Driverless AI, you would be in a position to take those mojo and like deploy that. And definitely like with respect to it could be the image model or like image model as well as like image transformers, like transformers as such. These DenseNet and like the ResNet, we would be using that as the transformers, and having like a light GBM or like XGBoost like models for our classification as the final model. We can kind of like try either of it with regard to it. We'll kind of like we'll jump on that in some time soon. And yeah, like with respect to computer vision, like the state of the art, like there are good amount of like close to 30 pre-trained models which are available there, and definitely like any custom architecture, like we kind of like have image auto, which is like developed, and which Kaggle grandmasters did use extensively for their own like tryouts, and that is how they did get a chance to like he and like they did get a chance to be on the top with respect to these image classification competitions. And we did get a chance to like take us take those kind of like techniques out there from our Kaggle grandmasters and like deployed there. And definitely I'll kind of like with just saying without worrying so much with respect to these how what pre-trained model with regard to like these 30 pre-trained model which we have to use. I think we have this image auto which like does all the things for you, and like we would be in a position to like have a take of the final deployable mojo scoring at the end of the day without like worrying a lot about these techniques. And which like any custom architecture for your case, definitely we could also like bring in there. And yeah, definitely like the image auto is one thing where to start with without worrying a lot. Fully automatic tuning, and with respect to the computer vision is like readily available with 1.9. And so as I mentioned, like more than the model training, we would be in a position to create those GradCam visualizations where taking the first picture as an example, the true class is a mouse, and we would be in a position to the prediction is mouse as well with a probability 0.934. The red and the green codes, which kind of emphasizes what the model had the model had used or transformed, and what specific feature from those pixels were used with regard to it. It kind of gives you a visual sanity check and debugging with respect to it. And the other validation errors, it would be in question to produce with respect to the true is a mouse, and predicted was a dog, and what contributed with regard to it. And more than this is with respect to the validation errors and such, where we kind of have our own automatic image augmentations within these trials, where it would be in a position to try zoom or crop and search, those kind of techniques which are available with respect to the augmentations, and to create more feature and more robust models with regard to it. So as I mentioned before, with respect to the deployment of a mojo scoring pipeline, so this is this kind of gives you a quick picture where the cat, dog, and the mouse classification, where once we kind of have the image vectorizer transformer, which is close to 86 MB. And 86 MB of transformer, it kind of gets a chance. It kind of it would be either of the any of the 30 pre-trained models which we kind of have, and the model which we did kind of get a chance to use is the light GBM here, and it would be in a position to create the cat, dog versus mouse classification. And definitely rather than using the image vector transformer, we can kind of use a very same ResNet or multiple multi different models as a direct model as well, which is also available with regard to this release. And so this is the straightforward with respect to the techniques, and you could kind of see how easier with regard to it would be deployable as a Docker, or even in your Mac, where the DA Mojo is one of the packages, the wheel packages which we kind of provide, and we kind of have a data table, one of the other open source project from H2O, and definitely how the scoring is it's pretty straightforward with regard to it. And this is a pretty straightforward, and with respect to the deployment, it could be, as I mentioned before, this is from the Python perspective, and the same we could also score it through R or C++, and even from the database perspective, where we kind of call these images and make a scoring with regard to. So before kind of jumping on it, let me kind of show the image transformer. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, which is H2O AI, right? Okay. Okay. So I'll kind of give you a quick, sneak with respect to the folder structure with regard to that. So I kind of have 3 different folders with the cat images for the training purposes, and the dog images, as well as on a different that's a different dog. I hope that's a dog. And different cat, dog, and mouse as 3 different folders. I'll kind of delete this one for our demoing purposes. Just zip it. And let's go ahead and kind of upload it here. We have this one. While it is uploading, let's go ahead and kind of see these details. So it would be in a position to understand where the images and its labels are, taking it from the folder structure. And we have multi different ways of importing the data as well, which we'll kind of have in the docs.h2o data. And with regard to it, with respect to the data set rows, you can kind of have a sneak preview with regard to these images. And the folder structure, the only two take is like the image and the label here. And let's go ahead and kind of like do the predict. um, So it kind of like shows up as two. One is the image and the other one is a label, and we have to like predict the label. And there are like three different like labels: the cat, dog, and mouse. And the most frequent is like the which is like the 92. We have 267 different images. I think yeah, 192. Yeah, close to, yeah, around of 200 for all the three classes which we had got here. As I mentioned before, like without worrying so much, like with respect to the pipeline building recipe, we can kind of like select the image model, and it would be in a position to like, based on the last settings, it would be just updating the specific model to be image auto model, which is like the Kaggle grandmaster recipe, as I kind of discussed before. And the image original transformer would be one, and such. Like that would be one of the changes, like starting with it. Actually, whether to skip recipes, we cannot, it does, which is kind of like disabled, because it would be kind of like going out and kind of like using the image auto model there without worrying so much with it. And let's kind of put it as auto so that. And with regard to the other, the techniques, I think, yeah, as I kind of like, show that we would be in a position to like, select all to try that out. I hope like you had got a like bigger GPU there, like trying it out there. But either or, I mean, like it would be a bit smart enough to like, try out these different like image transformers and like, try that out there. So likewise, that would be some of like, what trying out here. And I did get a chance to. So yeah, let's kind of like the straightforward way is like just going out and like launching the experiment, and it would be in a position to like try that out there. Likewise, I think the other one which I want to like stress it out. I think I do have a slide there, but the other one is like not visualized. So we would be in a position to like create leaderboard. Like what I mean by that is like, it would be in a position to like try out different like models, like basic models with regard to if yeah, let's go ahead and kind of do it, which would be without many feature engineering, it would be producing a good amount of like tryouts with regard to like light GBM, or like extensive feature engineering, single decision tree, single GLM model, or like complex light GBM model, without like which would kind of like create us like whether to like what kind of like the other models which we could kind of like try. And these validation scores would kind of help us to like ballpark, should we kind of go for a complex model, or like a simple light GBM which kind of like produces an equivalent result where it is more explainable, and we kind of like I did get a chance to build the confidence. So those sort of like decisions which we could kind of like take regard to it. And with all these different like models which it kind of like produces right away, but once we kind of click create leaderboard, and you could see the few features model with the decision tree, and like the simple light GBM. This is like the constant baseline, and the single decision tree model like complex light GBM and such. So this is like a new feature which it did get a chance we did get a chance to like add with the 1.7 1.9. So yeah, I hope that gives a picture. And going back to the which is like again with respect to the image and the create leaderboard feature. And so with respect to the new addition for NLP, like definitely like the state of the art, the bidirectional encoder representation for from transformers, like which is like created by Google. We did get a chance to like built it within our release of 1.9. And it definitely like pre-trained bird models, like the robota, or like more of the bird the flavors of the other bird base, which we did get a chance to like add. And you can kind of like select with regard to it. And definitely like optional fine tuning for transformers, like we did give a good amount of like for expert users, like provide an option, like control the fine tuning with regard to each of the transformers there, and definitely like using BERT, I think like GPU would be more preferred. And at the end of the day, we would be in a position to like extract a standalone mojo, which we would definitely go ahead and kind of like score on CPUs with regard to the new release. So that's with the PyTorch, like the BERT models, which we did get a chance to add in 1.9. And to give a picture with regard to like the model which we kind of like have on the leftmost, this is the BERT model, and the rightmost is like the TF-IDF model which we had got there. And definitely like the log loss, the lower the better. And like with respect to the TF-IDF model, like it did produce a like with the model of like log loss of 0.62, and like with the NLP, the other like the TensorFlow models, which kind of like uses the default CNN transformers and like bidirectional GRU models, and we do have a text CNN transformer model as well, which does SVD on top of it. Likewise, which did produce 0.50, and the new with respect to the BERT model, with like just using the BERT model, did get a chance to produce a log loss of 0.38. And definitely like this kind of like rises a good amount of like exploration with MLI. I think with the future releases, like with respect to like decoding these BERT models, these BERT transformers, I think it would be an interesting challenge and takeaway with regard to it. And yeah, to straightforward, like which is like even with respect to this particular deployment, the mojo scoring pipeline, and you could see like we have taking the text and like feeding that into the directly into the text BERT model, which is like 43 MB, 43 MB of the model, and it produces the outputs with regard to it. And you could kind of like see the quick example in the Python 3.6, and definitely like we can kind of like wrap it up as a Docker, as even we could kind of like call the same DA mojo model in R, and definitely on C++ or even with respect to Java, and make the scoring with regard to it. Which is like with respect to the modeling perspective, and we are kind of like moving into the machine learning interpretability piece. And with regard to the interpretability, like we could kind of like see the new one is like we kind of like started more than like waiting for the whole experiment. Like we have a good amount of techniques, like starting with the original feature importance, or like the Shapley values, the transform Shapley values, and like many sort of calculation which kind of like helps us to take a stab at understanding the model, or even the surrogate models. So the one takeaway which we kind of had is like having these on-demand interpretability calculations, it kind of like starts producing these individual results on the go, and it would be in a position to like it kind of helps you to like dive in there and kind of like take the scoring with regard to it. And definitely like starting, I hope everybody is kind of like getting a picture on the Shapley piece with respect to like more than the global interpretations which we kind of get from the original feature importance, or the original and the transform feature importance, which is on the global level. These Shapley values does produce the global interpretation of that, as well as the local interpretation. Like consider with respect to one particular prediction, we would be in a position to like say it is, though on overall basis, like it was the taking this as an example, pay zero was the main contributing factor, but here pay zero is like the most on the opposite perspective, like it should be in the negative like 0.25, which kind of like contribute to the model to be like to make that kind of prediction. So those sort of like takeaways at the end of the day, like with respect to the original features, that we would be in a position to like understand that from the local interpretation is one of the good like which helps us to create more confidence with respect to the model. And it is more of a like the usual techniques which are available there is the kernel shap and the tree shap. With 1.9 we did get a chance to like make kernel shap calculations, and I think it is more robust than the tree shap was with our experiments and take tryouts which we could kind of like see, and that's the upgrade. It's worth like reading about Shapley, yeah, getting a more deep dive into those Shapley calculations. I think it's fun. So, and yeah, as I mentioned before, like with respect to the automatic leaderboard creation, we did get a chance to like creating like a different sort of like complex models, default XGBoost models without like any tryouts, and those sort of like helps us to like create the validation score and the validation of the test score. And this kind of like helps us to um, uh, estimate our model complexity, like and the accuracy trade-offs, as I mentioned before. Like, should we kind of like go for a 10-10-1 model, which is like highly accurate, like we are kind of like pushing the model, pushing driverless AI to like try 10 accurate 10 points of accuracy, and the 10 time where we did have a good amount of time and the interpretability one? Or should we kind of like, where should we ballpark with regard to the deployment perspective? This kind of helps us to like kind of like a fast way to estimate the model complexity and the accuracy trade-offs. And definitely like with regard to the create leaderboard, it kind of like honors the expert settings, as like if you don't want a particular transformer, like target encoding to not to be tried with regard to each of these different models, it would be kind of like taking that into consideration while creating these different models there and such. So that's a good the automatic leaderboard project creation is like one of the good features, which I think it kind of like goes along with corroborates with the question of like the complex model deployment of the complex model versus a more simpler model, which is more robust and lean, which kind of produces as close as a validation score there. And like that's one of the feature there. And like the other one is like with regard to the regression models, like we did get a chance to like add these new feature of like prediction intervals, where we would the user would be in a position to like create the confidence level. It could be 0.9, 0.95 and such, where it would be giving a ballpark of like those projections with respect to each of the regression predictions. And I think this is not like a Gaussian distribution, or like where we would be kind of like understanding the error and like trying to like empirically like project those distribution with regard to it. This calculation, I see that as like more of like testing it out on the holdout data, and like seeing the error calculation with regard to each of the distributions there and calculating it. Which is a bit more robust and like trying to emulate the real time scenario than the distributions, more of like without making any assumptions with regard to the error calculation there. I think with regard to these point estimates, like but also like confidence intervals, I think you can kind of get out of the mojo there. And this is more for the expert. What I mean by that is like which is kind of, we would be in a position to like create a custom hierarchical feature engineering. What we mean by that is like let's take this as an example, where the first level is the features, the original features which you see on the left, and we are kind of like creating all sorts of different transformers, like target encoder transformers to start with this at the start, a different like the CV target encoding, and yeah, and like all sort of like target encoding as a transformer there. And in the next level, you could kind of like see a different taking the same data into consideration, creating another like levels there, a level of like information, creating another feature engineering from that one, and feeding that into the XGBoost model. This is one way of kind of like this is like having a layer of like which is the layer one. And I think more of this is more for the control for the expert of like how we could kind of like create what sort of transformations across each of the different layer. It is worth checking, and like maybe like having this as a parameter as one quick tryout on like the number of pipeline layers there with maybe 2 and 3. It would be interesting to see there, see how well it kind of affects the accuracy. That is one of the additions with 1.9. And the custom visualizations, like starting with 1.9, we can kind of go ahead and kind of create our own custom visualizations than more than the like automatic auto insights which it kind of produces. And like it would be I think I hope you did get a chance to like read our ggplot, or like the graphics, like get a chance to know about Leland Wilkinson. That's his he's did get a chance to like work with Tableau, and like yeah, and ggplot as well. So like taking that into like taking more than the auto insights, we would be in a position to create these other plot types, and like more to come, which we would be kind of like adding that in the future, where you can like readily download these different plots with respect to your data set, which you could kind of like produce. And the with respect to the time series, on the time series piece, we did get a chance to add the epidemic SID model. Like this is more of like, more than capturing the trend over the period of time, like with respect to the Christmas sales, or with regard to like the seasonality. We are kind of like dealing with a different the different game here, and like taking that into consideration, how well the current model uh, how well the current model could be improved with respect to your time series forecasting. So this SID model would definitely a way to like, go, and definitely like this is like, it is more of like taking the consideration of like even like starting with the predictions of like the COVID-19 over the period of time. This is like the epidemic model where the suspected and like the suspected and the recovered information, the projections there, it kind of helps us to, we had seen cases where and good amount of customers are kind of are using these techniques right now with H2O Driverless AI to improve their sales forecasting, like starting from the FMCG till like with respect to the hospitalization and the ICU bed predictions and such. So this is like already available with 1.9. I think with your time series forecasting models available, like which you did get a chance to like deploy, it would be good to like try out these new, augment those new information and like try these models. Yeah. And like, yeah, as I mentioned before, like with respect to the COVID-19 global forecasting, like for the last with respect to week 2, week 3, and week 4 predictions, like the top Casanova, and Rohan, and Dimitri, and like Philip Singer, like our Kaggle grandmasters did be on the top predictions with regard to it, and they did get a chance to like have these recipes or like improve the seed model which we had got out here. And like, yeah, as I mentioned before, like 16 grandmasters work with H2O, and more of like with regard to these like image or even the time series updates which we are kind of like seeing here are like well tested with regard to these competitions out there in Kaggle, and yeah, incorporated back in the product here. And this is one of the slides which I had got, which is like with respect to the Walmart, again with the time series, where without any with, you could see on the right with the 535 setting, without like much not flexing the arms of H2O driverless AI, and having RMC score where the M5 forecasting accuracy, if you kind of like go ahead and see that competition, it would be kind of like a different score. Driverless AI could be in the top 3% with default settings, and including the like the TWD model, the custom loss function as a custom loss function, and without any tryouts there, driverless AI could produce in the top 6% just out of the box. So definitely, like this is at least this competition where they did kind of allow like Google Automl, like the other automated machine learning tools. And I think with respect to this competition, like on the future competitions, I could see Kaggle and the other forums would be kind of like opening up these models out there for them to like use and like produce the very best result. And so yeah, taking that into consideration, like without just out of the box, driverless AI could produce 6%, and it kind of gives an option for the user to like tweak, like starting with respect to the custom laws, like or creating new transformers than the standard, like good amount of standard transformers available out there. And it kind of gives the flexibility. I think it helps us to like should try more out, at least when like to improve the predictions there, or like with the future competitions. And yeah, this is more of from the end-to-end like model, like the model management perspective, where like starting with we did get a chance to like produce more integrations with respect to the model ops, which is like the other new offering from H2O, and like, or even with respect to like which kind of helps us with respect to the drift detection, or when should we kind of like retrain or like give stability index score, and such, the deployment, like with respect to the model ops perspective, where once we kind of deploy how the model is performing with regard to the predictions and such, or even from the infrastructure perspective, like scaling with Kubernetes, or like different the multi-node, which we kind of like, which we did discuss before. So those sort of like the whole end-to-end like automation, which we kind of like did get a chance to like add it with respect to the new feature here. And definitely like talking about model ops, we kind of like did get a chance to have another like offering, as I mentioned before, like which kind of like helps us to like make like understand and how well the model is performing out there in the field, and like creating like we kind of like create alerts. We would be in a position to create alerts with respect to each of the deployment, how well the scoring is happening, and the whether like as we kind of like see whether to deploy to dev or prod, it kind of like automatically we would be in a position to like automatically like connect with regard to it. And so even with respect to the samples which we kind of like did collect with respect to the like over the period of time, how well the data sets are, how well it is kind of like deviant from the training, and the drift detection which we could kind of, or what would be the necessity for the retraining, where these alerts and such would be helpful for us to like look into the model operations. So that kind of like gives a summary of what's with 1.9, which with respect to the new release. And like more of from the H2O.ai perspective, like we so do get a chance to like check out our community pages, or like like read just go through the blogs which we did get a chance to put forth with regard to how to tackle like from the AI perspective of this COVID-19, and like how well with respect to the seed model, or like how well each of the like applications with regard to the supply chain, and or even with respect to the healthcare providers, how well these models would be kind of helpful on like nudging towards that one, nudging towards the new world which we are kind of heading towards. It would be good for the read with regard to it. And definitely like more questions. I mean, I did get a chance to get a glimpse of give a glimpse of what we kind of have, and but more of it, or like it would be more available in docs.h2o.ai, or feel free to like ping us through h2o.ai community. And yeah, H2O.ai community. I think it kind of leads us to the Slack channel, or support at H2O.ai if you're kind of like using driverless AI extensively, where we would be in a position to like answer your questions. And definitely like it is with driverless AI, it is more like for academic programs, it is free for academic use, and like do get in touch with like our marketing team, especially Saurabh, where he could kind of guide us in getting the license, putting things in place. And we did get a chance to release the H2O.ai Learning Center, where self-paced tutorials, like instructor-led courses, which are available on the best practices of like creating the model, or even with respect to the sparkling water, or even like deploying what would be the best right state of the art, how we could kind of like deploy these models would be the take there. Definitely like if you are kind of like looking for looking for new techniques, which is kind of like getting yourself back in the game on the ML, definitely these courses would be kind of helpful. Yeah, and questions, queries, and suggestions are like always open with H2O.ai community. Yeah, and definitely I want to like thank the H2O makers. We are kind of like a team of like 200 folks, and like did get a chance to like I'm happy and overwhelmed with respect to the knowledge and the exposure these H2O makers kind of like bring in, and I could learn from them. And definitely like with respect to expansion, yeah, definitely like do check out our website on the new opportunities and such. That summarizes what's with Driverless AI 1.9. Let's get into questions.
Great. Thank you, Sai.
Thanks a lot.
First question. Let's start with the basics. What are the technologies needed to know beforehand?
What are the technologies needed to know beforehand?
How technically sound somebody needs to be before they can build a model with driverless AI?
Like definitely, I mean, I think starting with the business analyst, like getting to know what we have to predict just having the training data, you would produce a good state-of-the-art model there. But definitely, like the next step, getting started with the H2O driverless AI, it is like 2-3 clicks of tryouts there. And but with regard to like having a more building your own confidence with respect to the model, definitely like docs.h2o.ai, and or even the customer data scientists like me, Felix, and people are available in APAC. We are like we are happy to answer your questions on trying on the different tryouts which we have with driverless AI, and we can answer those questions for you. But definitely, to start with, it's pretty straightforward. With respect to like building the confidence or like getting to know the right practices, we would be of help there.
Thank you.
I hope.
How can I implement BERT for a question answer system that I'm developing? Would you like to take that?
Yeah, I'll get a shot. I'll give a shot. So question answers as such, it would be more of, are you looking at it? If it is kind of like looking at the classification, definitely like it would be a good try, or like looking at the similar questions and like summarizing the answers. At least, yeah, BERT models and like H2O driverless AI would be of help. And like summarizing, like getting the using the BERT transformers, or like using the BERT models, or using the BERT transformers with like GVM models there, looking at that as a supervised learning problem, on like getting the like closer proximity questions there, would be of help, like nudging the question towards that. Whereas if it is more of the unsupervised learning problem, I think driverless AI wouldn't be of help as of now, but it's on the future releases where it would be in help. Yeah, we are kind of like working on that right
now. Great. I'm really interested in H2O model ops. How can I implement that in my organization?
Do get in touch with us, and I think we can take it offline, definitely. I mean, with regard to like how we can kind of like look into the detailed demo. I think with regard to the detailed demo, like last but before there from APAC region, I mean, I think Felix did a presentation. Do check out our YouTube website for like getting to know more about model ops, and definitely with regard to like trying out on your own, do get in touch with us.
Great. I am a beginner in AI and would want to start a startup in AI. How can I use driverless AI to begin with?
H2O.ai downloads to try out, to go ahead and kind of like download driverless AI there. But from the startup perspective, your question is more elaborative. It is more of like, what is the problem which you're trying to solve? And if is machine learning is the right way, or like, you kind of have a good amount of data, or you could capture the data there with respect to your problem statement, let's start, underwriting as an example, or even a tool for churn prediction. So driverless AI would be of kind of like help, where you kind of have a standalone tool. You can kind of like use the driverless AI models there, definitely for your AI startup. But more of this is from the AI startup question. It is more of like a global picture. But with respect to the use of the machine learning as a tool, yeah, definitely you have to try with the driverless AI, or even like to start with the H2O3 open source platform, where you have an AutoML piece without without trying out much. If you kind of have an idea, it is worth trying out with the H2O3 AutoML, which is like readily available in the GitHub for you to download.
Thank you, Sai. Next question. What about GAN models? Is tuning the GAN model available in H2O driverless AI?
Not right now. I think with respect to the GAMs, I think I'm not so sure like where we kind of like stand with respect to the release, but not with the current release, which is kind of like looking more at it from the supervised learning perspective.
Great, thank you. Is multimodal learning implemented, like using image data and text data together for prediction?
Yes. So the one example which I kind of had is just for the cat, dog, and mouse. But you can augment the data, what I mean by you can join the data with regard to like use the image transformers and rather than the image model, and go ahead and kind of like have your like metadata information with respect to the latitude or whatever, like whatever the tabulated data information, you can kind of go ahead and kind of like join it there. And where the light GVM like models, which would be kind of like more of help, definitely you can do that with the current release.
Great. You mentioned about the learning center. What are the prerequisites, or how qualified do I need to be, or how to go about it?
With regard to the learning center, I think you can be of like basic learner, like with regard to the machine learning like exposure. I think you can get it started. I do see. But actually, with respect to that question, like Saurabh, who would be the right person to answer, or like, would you like to take a stab?
Yeah, so we have courses depending on where you are in your AI journey. We have a fundamentals course that starts from the very basics, and gives you enough to start off with your AI journey. And then we have self-paced tutorials, and then we have instructor-led courses that you can take on our open source tools on driverless AI. And you can earn badges. These badges can go on your social profile. So there's a whole lot of options that you have in our learning center, and we're constantly populating it. So please reach out. Go to training.h2.ai, and we'll meet you there. That is the end of our questions. Sai, if you'd like to give any concluding remarks, else we can wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, like, I hope we did get a chance to give a whole summary of like what's coming up with 1.9. Definitely, like, we would be in a position to like answer more questions, starting with the image and like starting with the time series model, or like even with the NLP. Looking forward to your questions and engagements further. Yep, that summarizes.
Great. Thank you, Sai. And thank you everybody for joining us today. Like mentioned earlier, a copy of the slides and a recording will be sent out shortly. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.